Well, this is exciting. Just to give you context, my wife and I moved here. It will be, I think, next week. It will actually be 12 years. And we bought a little house about 10 minutes south of here in Carondelet Park, and began to tell people this crazy idea that there should be yet another church in St. Louis. That was the hard sell, because buildings are everywhere, and people thought, what in the world does St. Louis need with another church? But our vision was simple. The first part was just that we make it. Like, that was like a big challenge. At that time, in the early 2000s, the failure rate for new churches was about 80%. And so, I often have said, have you seen the opening scene to Saving Private Ryan? That was church planting back in the day. No training, no assessment, no community, no conferences, nothing. And so we really, just by God's call, just came. We moved here, started meeting people. We're able to gather about 30 people and launch the journey in September of '02. And our big dream was, okay, if by God's grace, in a few years, 3-5 years, we could get this thing up to 250 people. Maybe we could take 50 of those people and then release them to a different part of the city, and that we would be a church that planted neighborhood churches. And that was our dream, and that was our vision. And so from the beginning, that was our heart. So when we moved actually down here, which we just celebrated our, 2006. I'm trying to do the math. I was told there would be no math tonight. 7 years in this facility. When we moved down here, we realized we had a bunch of folks driving from St. Charles, and so we started a church in St. Charles. Well, we've actually been a part of, and we define it, our people, our money, our buildings. We've been able to start 8 churches outside of the journey. And most of those are in the St. Louis area. There's one in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But that's been our heart from the beginning. And the multi-site thing we just kind of happened into. We didn't mean to be multi-site, but we accidentally had 2 locations because we began to meet at Maplewood High School, and we kept our service at Hanley Road, our Sunday night service. And then when we came down here and we saw all the folks from West County driving all the way down here, we knew that we needed to do something in West County, because they would come down here, but their friends weren't going to come down here. They're non-Christian friends. And so that's how West County got started. And then the same thing happened over in Illinois, and first in Edwardsville, and then we released that to be its own autonomous church, and then now in O'Fallon and Southern Illinois. And so I just want you to know, like, what we're doing here has always been the plan. Like, we had no idea the church was going to be this large. We had no idea that we would ever own buildings. I mean, all the stuff that God has blessed us with, quite honestly, it just never in my mind or the early leadership's mind. But we wanted to be a church that helped plant neighborhood churches, because we felt like when you have a church in a neighborhood or in an area that people identify with, it's going to be a lot easier for those people to make an impact in that community, because that's where they live, and that's where they're invested, and that's where their kids go to school, and that's where their friends will come without having to pack a lunch to drive to the building, right? So we are really excited about what God's doing, and you need to know that this has been a matter of prayer for a long time. We have been actively praying. We tried to go to a different part of the city. We actually have a lot of people driving from mid-county, and we thought we had a building there, and that fell through, and then there was another possibility, and that fell through. And so the way God has orchestrated this whole thing has been very interesting. But just remember this. This is exactly what God has called us to do from the beginning, and that's to plant churches. Some of those will be journey churches. Some of those won't. Some of those will be in St. Louis. Some of those will be in Africa, okay? And so we are a church planting church, and we're delighted that you have come tonight to hear more about this. And our heart, as Jeremy said, is to answer your questions and to pray. And so that's really what this is going to be, a little vision, some prayer, and some Q&A. and we'll see what God does. Jeremy?
Thanks, man. So yeah, I think I know a lot of you, but if you don't know me, my name is Jeremy Bedenbaugh. I'm the lead pastor at the Journey Tower Grove, and also just one of the leaders of trying to help us send people from our congregations, all 4 of them actually, 4 of the 5, into South County and launch this church. So a couple months ago, our executive elders said we need to have a thematic goal for our church, and the goal they came up with prayerfully was create space for mission. We want our churches and people in our churches and our staff in our churches to create space for mission. In other words, to have margin in our lives to notice people, to have margin in our lives to sense and intuit what God, what the Holy Spirit is actually doing. And so this is one of the ways as we go, okay, so we all, a lot of the leaders, a lot of our staff started clearing things in our schedule and going, we want to start planning and making room, creating space for mission of church planting, specifically for South County. That's what we'll be asking a lot of you guys to do. Now, as we do that, we want to do church planting. Honestly, Darren said we've been prayerful about this. We want to do it by the leadership of the Holy Spirit. We want to be centered on the work of Jesus. We want to be founded on the Word of God. And the verse that has really been sticking in my mind that I shared at the members' meeting, I share with our staff this morning, is in Colossians 1. And this is what it says. It says, He, Jesus, is the head of the body, the church. He's the beginning, the firstborn from the dead. That is, in everything, He might be preeminent. And then later on, it says, Him, Jesus, we proclaim, warning everyone, teaching everyone with all wisdom, we may present everyone mature in Christ. For this I toil, struggling with all His energy that He powerfully works in me. So I share that verse for this reason. And it's this, that if our focus with this church plant is on our strategy, if it is on our people, if it is on our name, if it is for our church, if it is just to grow numerically, then we're in it for the wrong reason. What this says is that we want to do everything in our lives, and we want to plant churches for the one who is the head of the church, so that in everything He might be preeminent. He might be glorified. He might be exalted. So that's what we're about in this church plan. So that's why Paul goes on to say, it's for this that we're toiling, we're struggling. Earlier in 24, he says we're suffering. So when we go into plant churches, this is a spiritual act. It's going to be a spiritual battle. It's going to require toil. It's going to require struggle. It's going to require suffering. But Paul says we do it with the energy that He, God, already powerfully is working within us. And so I just say that to recenter our hearts and make sure we're on the same page and saying, like, our purpose, our goal in planting churches in South County is so that Jesus will be preeminent, that He will get glory, not about us, not about our name, but about people coming and meeting Jesus, and so that He gets glory in that. Now, what does this look like? So what does the vision for this church look like? So in South County, there are already a lot of churches. Darren said when we came to St. Louis, there were already a lot of churches here. So there are a lot of churches there, and a lot of those churches are trying to reach already churched people. And so as you're looking at that, there should be a graphic coming up on the screen. Is it up? Yeah, so there's a pre-existing church population that's already there, and there are churches that are already trying to reach those people. Now, here's the problem. Those people are largely already saved. Those people are largely already in church. Those people are largely already being targeted, and it's an ever-shrinking number of people. The reason we would plant a church is not so we can go after people who are already in other churches and try to get them to come to our church, try to steal other church members from their church. We want to look and say, who there is unchurched? Who is dechurched? And how do we bring Jesus into their world? That's a growing population, actually, in our country and in South County. And so we want to focus on that. We want to be a church for the unchurched. We want to be a church for people that don't yet know Jesus, so we can see people actually meeting Him, actually coming to Him. I see you guys smiling. You like that graphic. They're coming in. That's good. Thanks to Justin McClory for that animation, actually. So all that to say is, look, we want to be a church, not to go after other churches' people, I'm sure we'll get a few, but we don't. If we target already church people, already Christian people, we won't get any of the non-church people. But if we target the church people, we'll get all kind. If we target non-church people, we'll get all kinds of people. And so we're looking to make Jesus preeminent and exalt Him all over the city, but primarily focusing on unchurched, de-churched people who are not associated, connected to Christianity. So that's where, and to do that, so we need like a structure, we need an infrastructure. That's what we're going to be talking about a little bit tonight. So here's what we want to do is we want to spend the summer building a team, and so that's going to kind of consist of 3 concentric circles. So in the middle is kind of your leadership team. It's probably about 10 to 15 people. This will include pastoral staff. Now I know one of the questions going to come up: who's going to be the lead pastor of this church? So I'll just say as a teaser, we do have a guy that we think is called to this. We believe he's called, and he is really right now just working things out with his current employer, and so we need to honor that. We need to be sensitive of that. We need to let that remain confidential. But we do have a guy we believe God has brought to us to be the lead pastor of this church, who has a heart for planting a church in South County. So continue to be in prayer about that. We'll talk more about that. Hopefully at our next meeting will be a time to announce him and let him share his story and run part of that meeting. So you have the leadership team. It's your core volunteers, worship leader, pastor, assistant pastor, and then outside of that is the launch team. And so that's where we're going to be asking a lot of you who live in South County to be part of our launch team. And some of you are saying, well, I don't know, I might come, I might try to, dip my toe in the water, I might just kind of check it out. We would love it. We want to ask you to commit to 1 year. Just give us 1 year where you come down, you serve as a missionary, you serve in the church, you help us get the church started, you be part of the launch team. So these are the core volunteers that will help run our ministry, help lead community groups, will help do hospitality, greeting, lighting, sound, production, worship, Journey Kids, Journey Youth, all those kinds of things. So if you be one of those launch team, and then we're going to have, I know, a larger kind of lay team that will probably be about 100 plus people, and those are people that will be committed to coming, but not necessarily your regular volunteers. And the reason that middle line is dotted is because we want to take people who are on the lay team and start drawing them closer in and saying, how can you serve? How can you come closer? Now, what's the timeline for this? So we don't want to try to throw out a bunch of specific dates. We want to try to commit to something that we can't do. But what we want to do is we want to spend the summer building infrastructure. We want to spend the summer gathering those of you who are interested. We want to spend the summer casting vision and introducing pastoral staff. We want to spend the summer helping the launch team gather and grow and build community and train and be ready. So that in the fall, which is the best time to actually start and kick off churches, so we can do kind of a softer launch in late summer. So that's kind of like an internal launch, so we can work out some of the bugs, and then we do a public launch, a hard launch, hopefully early in September as we're starting a new sermon series at all our churches and that kind of thing. So hopefully that's our timeline, that we spend the summer building, creating, training, and then by the fall we have a church ready to go. And the reason we spend all summer doing that is because we don't just want to start a new Journey service. Like, we could start a service tomorrow. We want to start a church. So we want to have a place where people can be ministered to, where people can come in and be shepherded, cared for, where they can receive the word, where they can receive the Lord's Supper, they can be baptized, and that they can be sent back out into their communities, their neighborhoods, with their friends on mission with Jesus and for His glory. So that's kind of what we're looking at with the timing of those things. So I know we're going to do some Q&A afterward, but I want to talk about just 3 questions that I have heard and that I think I want to deal with and just flip a little bit. So we've heard a lot of what I would call good questions, and then I want to say, what's the gospel question that's really the most important? So a good question I've heard is, where will the church be located, right? So a lot of you are like, where is it going to be? And that's a good question, and we have some potential sites, we have some potential places. We've been working really hard on space and building and that kind of thing. But that's not the most important question. The most important question really is, where am I called? So not, is it most convenient for me and can I drive there really quickly, but do I live in South County and is God calling me there? That's really where I would direct you and say, like, that's really the question is, what is God calling you to? Because here's the deal. We want to plant a church in South County, and South County we recognize is a giant geographical area, and we want that church to eventually plant other churches in South County as well. So if you're going, well, if it's going to be over here, if it's going to be too far south, it's going to be too far north, then I don't know if I want to go. But here's the deal. We want you to go get invested in this church now, and then when that church is ready to plant a new church in South County, then you're already invested in that community and ready to be sent out into a neighborhood maybe perhaps closer to the one that you live in currently. So not necessarily where will it be located, but where am I called? And so I just invite you to pray about that, ask God to lead you in that, and really submit yourself to His guidance. The other kind of question I hear, second question is, what will the church offer? What's the church going to offer me? What kind of programs? What kind of things? Instead, I would say the question is really, how can I serve? The real question is, how can I serve? Because the truth is what the church can offer, the level to which it can engage the community, the level to which it can care for people, the level to which the church is going to be able to minister to your kids and do all that kind of stuff is dependent on having a launch team of committed people who love Jesus and want to see Jesus' glory spread in South County, and they go down and they serve. So that's what I would say is, it's not necessarily what will it offer, but how can I serve? How can I be part? What's God gonna call me to do in all this? Last question I'll talk about is, am I losing my church? So some of you might be going, I'm at West County, I'm at Metro East, I'm at Tower Grove, I really like where I am, I like, all the Tower Grove people are like, I really like my lead pastor, and I don't know if I can leave him. I understand that. That's a perfectly normal emotion, but the question, is not really like, am I going to lose my church, but it's how can I be sent by my church? So the whole purpose of discipleship is what Jesus says in John 20, just as the Father sent me, now I'm sending you. I'm sending you. And so we want our churches to be sending. So we don't want to just, the journey as a whole, we don't want to just be a church, an old church that kind of eventually turns stodgy and turns in on itself. We really want our church to be more than singular churches. We want it to be a movement in and for St. Louis and surrounding areas. So that's really our goal, is to be part of a movement. So the question is not really, am I going to lose something? It's like, how is the church that I'm in now going to send me out, going to equip me, disciple me, and move me out into mission? So those are the questions, and you guys will have more questions. We'll deal with those in a few minutes. But what I want to do before that is I want to introduce what we're calling our implementation team. And so you think about that, the leadership team, the launch team, and how are we going to source the people who are going to volunteer and go down there? How are we going to equip? How are we going to train? How are we going to do those things? Well, we've asked a lot of people in our staff to create space for mission. And so if you're part of the implementation team, I should come up and just kind of stand up here. I'll introduce you so everybody will know who you are. So we've asked people to create space for mission in their calendar so they can be part of identifying, training, equipping, empowering volunteers. Now, the work of these people is not to go down and do church. It's to help everyone who is excited, everyone who is committed to go into South County, get equipped to be the church there. And then, so it's not, the idea is not control, it is how do we support. So let me, I'll just start in the end. So Justin McClory, he's heading up our community groups. He's kind of point man on that. Katie Wachter, next to him. Katie is our admin, logistic, project management, all those kinds of things. Scott Hickox, he's the lead pastor at West County and the sending pastor. So we have a lot of South County residents that are attending West County, and so Scott's one of our sending pastors, helping to equip his people to come there. Jeff Hutchings, he and John Hessel, John's not here, John's on vacation, but John Hessel, who's the children's director at West County, and Jeff will be working together on the Journey Kids piece and helping volunteers get trained and equipped on that. Simon Yost, he'll be working with Brian Turnbull and Cale Riggs on production, IT, technology. Adam Moskal, he is working with Kim. Where are you, Kim? He's working with Kim Maple on hospitality, greetings, serving teams, front of house, all those kinds of things. Brett Arndt, he is director of our MediaCom team, media communications. And Brett is going to be leading on how do we communicate, how do we help advertise and promote this, how do we help you invite your neighbors and friends. Katie Fitzgerald, Katie also works with media and communications, doing the same thing. Melissa Stevens is our new director of human resources, and she's going to be helping us deal with the staffing and pastoral staff. Lisa Hasse, Lisa's our chief of staff, part of our executive leadership team, and so she's going to be working with me, Mike Duncan, who's on the end, to do facilities, budgets, staffing, all those pieces. Probably a lot more than that too. Rusty Maple, he is an associate pastor out at West County, and he's going to be working with Justin on the community group piece. And let's see, that's everybody. Nice. So this is the implementation team. They're all making space in their schedules to try to help us get trained, equipped, and we'll talk about them again at the very end. But the bottom line is, if you have questions about the church, if you're like, oh, I'm interested in community groups, I'm interested in Journey Kids, I'm interested in whatever, come find the person associated with that. If you don't know, just ask one person, they can direct you back around. And then we want you to come talk, create conversation so we can connect you to the appropriate person and thing. So let's give them a round of applause because they're putting a lot of work in this. So what we want to do now is take a few minutes and pray. So do you have the response card that you received when you came in, the little perforated card? So on that card, at the top, we've placed 4 kind of key prayer requests. They're going to be on the screen if you don't have the card. There's some Bible passages tied to those so we can pray biblically about those things. We want to make it perforated, so after the meeting, take it home, put it on your fridge, put it on your mirror, whatever. But we just want to take a few minutes now and pray, because the bottom line is, like, we've got an amazing team. Like, we've done a lot of things, like, on the fly, off the cuff at the Journey, and this, we got an amazing team. We've got great leaders. We've got a lot of planning. We put a lot of prayer into this. But the bottom line is, it doesn't matter how good our leaders are. It doesn't matter how much planning strategy we have. If God is not leading us, if the Holy Spirit is not leading us, then our work is for naught. So in everything we do, we're dependent on Him. So we're going to stop now. We're going to pray. I'm going to ask you just to group up with kind of 3 or 4 people, 4 or 5 people around in the row. And if you don't feel comfortable praying, that's fine. Let others pray. But let's just pray together. You guys pray for those things, other things that are on your heart. And then in a few minutes, I will close us in prayer. And then we'll take some time to do some question and answer with Darren and myself. So huddle up, groups of 4, 5, 6, someone in your row, turn around, people behind you. And just spend some time praying for those things on your card and other things that might be on your heart.
All right, no questions. Let's close in prayer. Come on, people.
We might not be able to hear it. If we can hear it. Dave.
Wait. He's got the mic. You don't have
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Hang on. Go, bro.
A lot of cultural Catholics in the area. And a lot of them are unchurched, not presently going. You know, I know some of them that they're there every Sunday, but they don't know Jesus. We got special strategies that we're going to try to employ to reach those groups.
Yeah, this isn't going to work. Can you hear that? Mm-mm. Do we have a monitor up here, guys?
The what?
That's all right. Nobody can hear us.
Just shout your question out. It's going to be easier than trying.
I think the sound is too hard up here, so neither one of us could hear your question, Dave.
There's no monitor up here. So you said cultural Catholics. What's our strategy? So the question is, a lot of cultural Catholics. What's our strategy? What's this? It's cutting edge. I mean, preach the Bible, have community groups, and take good care of our kids and our youth, and that's really it. I mean, it's no different to me than what we've experienced everywhere else. I think the suburban issue is a real issue, and that's what our group prayed about. Just that you have people. It's such a large geographic area that I think a lot of times in those scenarios, it's just easy to be disconnected and feel like, well, I go over here for this and here for that and everything. So to really help people kind of holistically integrate their life better, and I think that's our great opportunity. But I honestly think reaching all people, especially those kind of folks, really happens through community and through neighbors. And so hopefully we're going to be able to train our people to be missionaries, to live, preach the gospel.
Are you definitely wanting a site that's fully Journey owned and operated?
we're looking at a lot of different options. So we're pretty much we're open. We want to do what's best for the church, but we're going to be in South County. So we're going to, if it's not our location, it's going to be a location that we can get a long-term lease or contract at or whatever. But we're open to other church buildings or buying a building. So we're open to a lot of different options, and we've looked at a lot of different options, but we're limited by the availability of what's out there right now. But we are committed to being in a place where we're not going to be like, hey, this week we're here, and then 3 weeks later, everybody meet over here 4 miles away, and then next month, so we're going to be in a place where we can at least get a long-term lease.
And that will be a lease facility at the beginning unless something supernaturally dramatic happens and somebody gives us a building, or so we have some plug-and-play kind of deal. So the question is, have we been talking to other churches in South County? I would say yes, and people who have had ministry there before. Have we gone to specific pastors in the area, like holistically? No, we haven't done that. That's something we did do in Marion once we had a commitment from people that we knew, and so we will do that. That is because the one thing is, God's already working in South County. Like, there's good churches. I met one of my buddies is here from a great church in northern Jefferson County, and so there's great. It's not like here comes the journey to save the day. Like, no, God's already at work doing awesome things. We want to be a part of what He's already doing, and we want our people who, by all accounts, as we look at our city registrants, if that's the right word, participants, whatever. People who are on the city, almost 400 from South County, making a choice to go to Tower Grove, to West County, Hanley Road, Metro East. And so we want those people to be on mission. But yes, the answer, Carrie, is that we are going to do our due diligence and not necessarily asking for permission, but just being a good neighbor and friendly and saying, hey, we're working with you, not against you.
Yeah, we've done several different analysis. We have zip code analysis of all the people that go to church at all our Journey churches and what zip codes they live in and what areas. Now, we did not create like a push-pin phone board, though, so we don't have that yet, but we have looked at all the stuff, and we have done a lot of analysis, and we continue to do that and try to make a decision that is accessible and convenient where people can actually get there, and that's a key issue for us.
Yeah, I love what Jeremy said, that honestly, I mean, by God's grace, obviously, and timing and providence, but the way we look at it is we think we could have multiple churches in South County, just because of what you said, Paul, just the vast expanse that it is. Yeah, I mean, the truth is, when Paul would go to plant churches, he would gather any Christians that were there. And he would go to church first. He would go to the synagogue first and see. And so we don't hate Christians. I'm not one of those pastors that hates Christians, but so we don't believe that necessarily it's wrong that you have people who want to be a part of something new that are believers. And I think it will be Christian heavy, so to speak, in the beginning. But I think it's our great challenge as a church in North America, where the culture of the ecclesiology, the doctrine of the church, is so shallow and thin that people basically just bail when it gets hard wherever they're at, and they go to the next cool hip Trinity deal. So I think in our membership process that we're revamping, where we really equip people to be missionaries, and I think it's just really, quite honestly, it's on the launch team to make sure that they're inviting their non-Christian friends. I mean, I hate to, at least to the service, and then that they're living it out in the community. So we can have great preaching, accessible worship, do the service in such a way that a non-Christian could understand it. But if they're not being brought by their friend, if they're not there, it doesn't really matter. So now part of that's on you, and then part of that's on us to help train and equip you. But it's a definite concern. I mean, that we just go down there and it's just, oh, great, we don't have to drive as far, and we got our own church now. I mean, that's something we're going to have to fight against.
The Journey is Reformed teaching church.
So are you saying we're going to get all the weirdo Reformed people? Is that what you're telling me?
No, she's promising a church of 1,000 right off the bat.
Thought about that. I don't really like those people. I do think you're right. So the question is, are we prepared for people with our theological distinctives to come because there's not options? I think that's always the situation when we start a church, and we've seen that in, I think, all of our new churches. And we've seen that in Southern Illinois, for instance. So yes, I think so. And I think the big challenge is, especially on that particular issue, is to help those, just like anything, that the membership process helps us turn people into missionaries. Like that's really the case. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And who knows, if they're driving real far, maybe we can start another church down there. I don't know. I hate the thought of people driving more. I think if you're driving more than like 20 minutes, I think and they've done studies on this, you lose your ability to really reach the people around you with the ministry of that church. It's just too far. So I know there's exceptions that prove that rule, but that we don't want people driving long distances. It just doesn't seem to be good for the forward progress of the gospel.
You guys mentioned in the slideshow from June to August, part of the process is going to be to gather and grow. Can you expound on that?
Yeah, I think what we're going to try to do is, so the implementation team you saw up here, those people are going to be responsible for starting to talk to you guys, gather people who are interested in coming, committing, serving, and trying to get a taste of who's really willing, who's really in, and then start building those teams, start gathering those teams, start training volunteers. So some of you might be here and like, hey, I really haven't been able to volunteer because I kind of live 25 minutes away and I'm driving in from South County, and I don't really know how to be a volunteer at Journey Kids or how to be on the hospitality team or whatever, and so we want to help you get trained to do that. So those people will be reaching out and gathering people. We'll also be having other meetings coming up where we gather all of us together and do some vision and growth, and then like break into those teams and break out for that too.
As well as, we'd love to have some barbecues around South County where people can connect together and kind of figure that out. And that's a great Journey tradition that we've done from the beginning, where people gather. A lot of community groups take off in the summer, and so we hope to do that as well. Yeah, you're very pessimistic, Brenda. I don't like that. Are you going to let us down again? That's your question. Okay, thank you. The answer is yes, probably. But no, it's a fair question. It really is. So in the situation with Mid-County, there were no lease options buildings-wide that were big enough. or they were big enough and they had parking, or there weren't any options. And so that is not the case in South County. So we will be somewhere. Now, will that be the place? And what Pastor Jeremy was saying earlier was, we're not going to move every week, but it could be that we're just in a place for 3 months. It's possible. I don't want to rule that out. And then we find it. So that's part of what Mike Duncan has done, is our director of operations. He has scoured that part of the world and unearthed many options. So we do have some good options. And in fact, one of the ideas in this meeting, we were going to actually meet down at one of these options, but then another option came. So we want to really manage expectations well, and we know that's a big deal because of how big South County is, and some of you are just like that, the good question versus the gospel question that I hope you're wrestling with even as I answer this question. Yeah, so we will be somewhere. We just, we don't know. And I will just reiterate, it will most likely be a rented, leased facility. That's what we'll be worshiping in corporately. Yes, I'll answer the screen question after you answer after you ask your second question too.
You want to do the first one?
You do the second one first.
Yeah, so we'll figure out who's going to go in. Is the question, who's going to fill, if you guys leave West County, who's going to fill that gap?
Well, and is there going to be training for us to go into other positions that we've always wanted to do?
Yes. Yeah, so that's why we built this 15-person implementation team. They can come along behind you, support you, and say, hey, here's how you do that. What is it you really want to do? What is it you really want to work on? Volunteer with. We want to help you get trained, equipped to do that, and then send you to South County to do it. So, yes.
And the answer to the first question is, yes, it will be a Journey church. So this isn't an autonomous church plant. That we still do that. Okay, we still are starting churches that aren't the Journey in the St. Louis area. But and our recent one is, in case you live in Mid-County Webster, we're doing a replant with Bob Bigford. If you guys are at West County, he was the interim pastor at West County. And so several Journey families have gone with him to replant Sherwood Baptist Church. And that is going really well. And so if you know anybody in that area or you're in that area, please consider being a part of that because God's doing amazing stuff. Let me answer the screen question, but I think this is especially relevant. One of the things that the elders have, and I have wrestled with over the years is what is the best use of Darren on our network of churches? And so one of the things we are seeing is that when we start new churches, it's really good for me in kind of that, that small a apostolic role to go and help these churches get started. And so what that looks like is there's live preaching from me. There's some leader training that I'm a part of. And so without giving you percentages and making promises about anything other than to say, are the elders ready with the tasers in case I go too far? I see Jeremy's getting nervous over here. I will be preaching live at South County some. And so, as will Jeremy, as will our lead pastor. And so it actually, so what I'm saying is you're going to get me live. And so, and what that looks like at Tower Grove is going to be more video. And so we've already and so I've been down at Southern Illinois a lot, just because our launch pastor preaching wasn't really his strength. And so, we're looking for a lead pastor there permanently. And so I've been down there a lot, and my anticipation is I will be participating with Jeremy and our lead pastor that we really wish we could have announced tonight, but can't. That we'll be working together on the preaching and teaching ministry. So if your thing is, I want to hear Darren live, so I want to stay at Tower Grove, that's not a good plan. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out.
It's highly likely one of us is going to say something wrong in the answer to this question. But basically, we have...
Mike Duncan here. That was my first question. Can you answer that? Would you think you'd be better if you answered that so we don't screw it up? You're going to have to take your hat off, though, because your hat's on in the house of God or on the house of God, depending on your theology.
So we kind of look at it. The question is, if we are sending people to South County, do we each think of each of our churches as its own financial center where it's supporting itself by the giving of that church? And will starting South County steal and cause pain at other churches currently because finances are moving away from that? It's kind of a mixture of both. We see each church independently, but we also have the ability to pool all of our resources together. So in some ways, yes, the giving that's happening right now at West County and Tower Grove and Hanley Road by people that are going to go to South County will leave those churches, but they're not leaving the journey collectively. And one of the great advantages of being a multi-site church is that we get to have all of our resources together, but also look at each church distinctively. So yes and no, maybe. But in many ways, we believe that God will provide for the ministry that he's calling us to do. That's what we put our trust in financially. And so if giving is leaving Tower Grove and West County, we believe that if there is dollars needed to do ministry there, that God's going to provide that to those churches, and he's going to provide it to the journey overall. So it's definitely something that we think about and possibly lose some sleep over, but ultimately we want to trust God with that. So
that's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah, me too. But reality is, and I just want to be candid. So if I think, and maybe God will it seems reasonable that Tower Grove will shrink. It seems very reasonable that will be a reality, because we do have a lot of you guys that are coming here. That, coupled with the fact that I will be preaching less live here, I think impacts that. Maybe not. Maybe that won't be the case at all. But if you notice, we went from 5 services to 3. That was super intentional, because we do want people, about half the people who attend this campus live nowhere near this place, nowhere near it. And that's a problem. That's a problem. That hurts our, that hurts our efforts here in this neighborhood, in this area. It really does. And so we are intentionally reducing services. And we're not going to, I mean, it's debatable about how those kick back in the fall. I know Jeremy and the elders here are working through that. But we really want people to worship where they live. And we're doing some of that, some of the strategery behind what we're doing, hopefully is to that end.
They already said West County. I told them West County.
I don't think we know. Yeah, I think it is, James, a little bit early, but I think it'll be very similar. My guess is it really depends on the worship leader and the lead pastor and kind of what they see, and the local elders that'll be a part of that to start with, which we hope to start with a couple. But if all that works out. So I think it'll evolve. I think part of it is worship is contextual, and so I think a lot of it has to do with how it connects with people, and that we may miss, we may do a service like, whoa, no, we can't do that here. Like Hanley Road. If you guys know Hanley Road, is very different worship-wise than Tower Grove, and even different than West County. And so I think it'll take a life of its own. And so it depends on the lay worship leaders and the people that are going.
Any thought to the number of services and the service times?
We're hoping to get a facility, number of services and service times is the question. We're hoping to get a facility that holds up to or beyond 400. So the hope would be that in the beginning we just have one service. That would be the hope, so that everybody can be together. That may not be reality. We may have to go to 2 services immediately. And so, if it's one service, you're probably talking 10 a.m. If it's 2 services, you're probably talking 9 and 11.
You mean as we start the church?
Yeah, I think in South County there's lots of parking lots. I mean, I'm just thinking like community outreach some way somehow. Because even though you have neighbors, it's pretty vast.
Yeah, we're developing a pretty comprehensive strategy, and what we want to do is really start gathering that launch team, have the lead pastor, the launch team, the worship leader, the elders, and all the people that are committed in that, then start going, hey, what can we do? Can we do something in our neighborhood? So we have even already our media communications team already going, hey, what can we do to help people there? How can we can do barbecues, we can do parties, we can do swim. I mean, so we've already looked at a bunch of facilities, a bunch of parks, a bunch of places, actually an outline kind of who is where and what parks are there. So we've actually started thinking a lot about that, and I think that's a great idea.
Did you say swimming?
Yeah, well, there's a great park in South County that has a regular pool, a family pool, a lazy river, a big thing. So we're thinking about having a big party there. So you're not in all these planning meetings. You don't.
Are bikinis allowed, or what Speedos? How are we doing the modesty piece on that?
You got the Speedo.
Okay, that's a bad look. Okay, I just shocked by the swimming outreach. I've never heard of that, so that's a new journey thing for me. Yes.
You've mentioned training several times. Can you give us an idea as to what that would look like, what kind of commitment that we would need to put forth?
It's going to be different for different teams. It'd be different if you're working on a hospitality team versus, say, working with wanting to be a room coordinator for Journey Kids. So it's going to depend on where your interest is. And we have a place for everybody, no matter what hey, I only have X number of hours a week, or other people have a lot of time. So we're going to have a place for everybody, but based on kind of what you want to do and where the need is, then we're going to fill that in from there.
And the other piece is, too, we have a pretty cool spiritual gifts class that Lisa Hasse helped pioneer and teach. And so we'll do that as well, because some of you are like, I'd love to do something, I just don't know how God's wired me. I don't know how God's gifted me, and so we'd love to be able to help you discover that.
I was wondering how long it would take you to commit somebody to something.
Yeah, I know. I saw her back there. She looks like she needs something to do, so I'm just going to go ahead and throw that on. Somebody up here? I thought I saw a hand. Okay.
I guess I'm looking for more leadership's viewpoint. A lot of this would come in very well. So you take somebody you've heard about Journey South County, super excited, grew up there. A lot of their circle is in part of South County. Like you said, it's huge. Let's say where the church ends up being is even further away from them and their circle than where they're at already. You mentioned the thing with 20 minutes. Would your recommendation be to still go with the knowledge that it might spread in South County, or maybe stay where you're at, where you're actually closer to where your circle's already at, and wait for that next one to come and jump in?
I would say as a rule that you should go, because I think that even though it might be in a different place in South County, I have to believe that's an easier place to get people than to come here and get them to stick. Now, if that's not true and you've got some kind of weird thing, you work close here, that's a different story. But I think for most people, really to go and help us get this thing going. That's the other thing. It's like the launch team is just that. It's a launch team. So maybe some of you are in that exact situation. You're like, well, I don't know. Help us get this thing going and then discern what God's doing. Maybe we do start another South County, or maybe you come back to Tower Grove or West County or wherever you're at. But I think we really need people to serve as the foundation. And that's really what this is. You're saying, I want to be the foundation of this wonderful building that God is building, and I want to be a part of that. I want to see God use me. And so I think I would say go, unless you've got just some crazy thing like if I go, I lose my friends. They're not gonna. You know what I'm saying? They're gonna miss out if I go. I think that's.
Yeah, I'd say give us a year, commit to 1 year as a missionary, and just see what God does.
Yeah, because the cool thing here, at least at Tower Grove, and maybe even at West County, is they start other services at odd times because they're exploding. If you did have friends like that you could come on Saturday night with them. You know what I'm saying? Or connect them. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways. Somebody had their hand up over here somewhere.
A couple things. If we know of potential buildings in South County, who do we contact about that?
Mike Duncan. Mike was just up here. Mike will be here. You don't have to come up here. Keep your hat on, boy. But Mike, yes, Mike would be the guy to let know, and he'll be afterwards. Please hit him up. No building is too crazy.
M. Duncan at thejourney.org.
And then for the timeline of like a temporary location, which would probably be like a school or a movie theater or something, when might we know that?
When are you going to know that?
When we announce it. We're hoping to know that by the next big meeting we do. So we have, like Darren said, we have several potential things, but some other potential things have popped up. So we hope to be able to announce that and do that at the next meeting. But there's no promises because we're really trying to be open to what God's doing. But we do have space available. So.
And finally, is Darren going to be on the billboard with his wife?
That question was, will Darren and his wife be on a billboard? And the answer is absolutely. Not. Absolutely not. Sorry. Not. I'm too tall for Osteen. That'd look awkward. For more than one reason, but anyway.
I don't think so. I don't think I caught it all.
So you're asking how we do church discipline at our churches, we don't use that word campus anymore. That are our churches, you're saying, and how do they stay unified?
I guess more that, like, once it's set up, once you're gone, I mean, obviously we're driving for a reason.
Once I'm gone, what do you mean?
Something I like to tell you.
Paul, you ready over there?
I guess once you're established more, you're done preaching on a more consistent basis. Because once you're there, then obviously you'll be maintaining the vision for Journey.
Right.
That once you're not there as much, how does that?
I get you. Well, that's part of my I want to say new role, but that's kind of what I was saying earlier about the elders. So when we see the New Testament, not comparing myself to the Apostle Paul in any stretch, but the apostolic kind of movement in the early church was Paul would go plant churches, and then he would appoint leaders, and he would lead. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. But then he would go back, right, and check in. And so all I can say is that will happen. And we will determine the frequency. The lead pastors there at South County will determine, and the elders will, hey, what kind of, how can Darren benefit? And do we need vision? And what are those? And what leader meetings could he be a part of? That kind of thing. And then the other thing I would say is our lead pastor community is unbelievable. It's the best that it's ever been. It's growing. And so I feel like in the past, just because we didn't know what we were doing, I didn't do a great job of leadership. I think our lead pastors, there was a lot of signal loss at our vision. And I think we have remedied that issue. And so I don't think it's going to be that big a jump from me to the lead pastor as far as vision, knowing that God has gifted me in unique ways, and that the church needs to benefit from that. So I think the dance between those two. Does that help?
Yeah, that works. I just wanted to understand, like, I guess, how you guys maintain, I guess, the same theology with different campuses and everybody can.
Yeah, we don't use that word. It's churches. I'm correcting it for a reason, because these are churches. Okay, this is a real church with real elders, and so I think the theology is we all work from the same doctrinal statement. When there's preaching that happens, I'm looking at all those sermons. You know what I'm saying? So and Jeremy and I actually work together with the other lead pastors to give direction and oversight there, and so we're all on the same page. And if anything crazy gets said, we hear about it, or you know what I'm saying. If there's something that's a little askew, we deal with that. So we definitely know what's going on. It's shocking how much pastors actually know about what's going on, even in a church this size. It's pretty shocking to me, actually. So we know what you people are doing. So we'll watch your mouth.
Accountability, making sure all the pastors have accountability one another, because when you do have separate churches, even though you're part of the same church, not the Catholic Church, you don't have, it can appear not to be, accountability. I think that's what she's kind of hoping,
Yeah.
that if some.
Is that better? Is that part of what you were saying too? Yeah. Well, and then so that's a separate question. So the accountability, well, each lead pastor has a local team of elders that work to do teaching, church discipline, pastoral care at that local level. Those lead pastors are on a team that I lead. I'm submitted to the board of elders there's 4 guys who are lay guys. They can all fire me. I can't fire them because they don't work for the church. And it's just kind of the checks and balances from there. So yeah, I mean, South County will be no different as far as accountability, theology, vision, etc.
I have a question about Forest Park Southeast, close to Tower Grove. I associate those because they're geographically close, especially St. Louis. South County have any sort of vision in that regard to, certainly it can't be a Forest Park Southeast because that doesn't exist exactly like it does here out in South County. Besides preaching unchurched, is there any other sort of vision, inspirational vision besides just preaching unchurched?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's something we've talked about from the beginning. That's something even, recently we were talking to our lead pastor candidate. He turned to us and said, can we do something like this in South County? We engage people's hearts. We reach out to the community, do this. This is what I want to do. So absolutely it's going to be part of that. And a lot of that's going to be set contextually by what's happening in South County, what you guys are seeing in your community groups, what the local lead pastor and elders are kind of called to there.
And I would use West County as an example of how that's working out practically with their outreach to the Hispanic community there and some other stuff they're doing. So I absolutely think there's possibility there. Well, wouldn't you like to tell them who that candidate is, Jeremy? Wouldn't that be great if we could do that?
Just dig it in. I mean, just good.
When you said it'd be more video at Tower Grove, do you mean less of your live preaching or actually more video?
Isn't that the same thing? Or I'm just, what's the difference? Oh, I get it. You say, okay, it'll be Jeremy more. Okay, I get that. Yes, I think both. The answer is yes, less live Darren, and yes, more live Jeremy. Yeah. So yeah, golf clap. We like it.
Three
Yeah.
people like that. There we go.
So absolutely. What was that?
That was my president of my fan club.
Okay. Yeah, so absolutely. But part of it is back to her question, there is a vision alignment thing that happens when all the church is hearing from the founding pastor, and I think that we do want to make sure that comes through, and the board has been very clear about their desire for that, and so there's a reality to that, and And so, the dance between all that, we'll have to. So I saw another hand right here.
Yes, we have several elders that are part of Tower Grove that are interested in also making that move, and we also have some others who would be elder candidates. So we're about to start a new elder candidate process in the next few months, and so we'd see some of those men going through that process as well. So no, like, not going to announce a bunch of names because we don't have anything for sure, but we do have several guys who are elders and interested in that.
How robust do you see the staff at South County? Do you see children's pastor? I mean, you mentioned a lead team of 10 to 15. Are those all going to be staff members, or?
Yeah, the lead team of 10 to 15 is staff and then key volunteers. So what we're planning to start with is a lead pastor, an assistant pastor, and a worship leader, and then some key volunteers around those people, and then be able to build out from there. And we'll see how many people come, who's committed, how many, what do we have, and then we can staff accordingly based on that. So that's the start. We're going to start there.
Got time for a couple more? Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to do several different things. So here, I'll just go ahead and say this is before we close. So do a couple things. One, those response cards you got when you came in, if you haven't filled it out yet, fill it out and don't leave here until you give it. If you just want to leave it under your chair, you can. There's some bronze buckets, or some buckets will be in the back on the way out. You can hand it to me, anybody on the implementation team. So do that. The second thing is we already have a website up, and you guys can pull this up. This is thejourney.org/SC. That stands for South County. So we already have that set up. And I thought it stood for South Carolina initially. But so that's what the page looks like. You can see on the page right there, get involved, give, join the city group. So somebody asked about giving earlier. I couldn't believe you didn't even pass a basket at that point. But right there, we already have a fund, a South County fund for giving. So you can go on thejourney.org/SC, click give to the Journey South County Fund. There's a city group. You can like the Facebook page, and then you can get involved, which will get your information to us. So fill out the response card. Go to the website, and we're going to keep you updated. So we're going to have some barbecues, we're going to have some other meetings, and then if you, offer us your information, then we're going to connect to you and then help you gather in smaller venues as well. So all the information will come through that website, though.
Is the give, is that above or tithe or no tithe?
Double tithe.
What's it, double tithe?
Yeah.
I figured somebody's going to ask it, so I might as well for you.
Yeah, that is intended to be kind of above and beyond what your already regular giving is. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, and join that city group, because a lot, it's hard to ask questions in a room this size, and those of you, those of you who are introverted, you're already in distress, over thinking about asking a question. So this is a great way for you to ask your question and get it answered. And so please, those of you who don't take advantage of the city, you're really missing out on a great opportunity for community and connection. So we strongly encourage you to do that. Well, let me, if there's other questions, we'll hang out up here.
Implementation team's going to be here.
Implementation team will be up here. And so those of you who have specific areas, I want to serve, because that's the great thing about doing new churches. Like, just imagine if we were just one church of like 5,000 people. Like, only the best of the best of the best of musicians, only the best of the best. I mean, it would just, the scale of it just really keeps the majority of the church from using their gifts. The great thing about starting these new churches is everybody gets to play. Everybody gets to get in the game. And so for some of you, you've had a heart to serve. I think one lady shared earlier about that. I mean, just come up and interact with our team. Come up and say, I don't know where, but I just want to serve. Fill that card out. Guys, this is an exciting time in our church. And what I need you to think about, and I appreciate the question about, if I leave, is that going to hurt where I left? There's enough passages in the Scripture, and And I'm thinking of one, in the book of Proverbs, it says, the one who waters will be watered. And it was an agricultural metaphor. But the idea is, when we've seen this over and over again, we've started new churches or asked people to go to different services. As soon as those people leave, God brings other people to fill those seats. And those people get to connect because there probably wasn't a place for them to sit in a lot of times or to serve. And so don't be afraid to be bold. And especially if you're on the fence, we really want to challenge you to pray about this and really, some of you are risk averse. You hate change. And sometimes you think that is just the law, right? That's just the way it is because that's just how you live all of your life. I would challenge that and say, submit that to the Lord and let the Lord lead you to either way. But if you live in South County, man, this is our chance. I honestly think God could really do some amazing stuff beyond all that we would ask or think. I mean, I think I have a real sense. Who knows what'll happen? But I have a real sense this could be very impactful in that area of our great city. And boy, wouldn't it be great to be on the ground floor for that? So let's pray. And if you have questions or want to interact with us, come on up. Father, thank you for every man and woman and boy and girl that are here. Thank you that you use real people, ordinary people like us, to do amazing things. And so, Lord, we do ask that you would work in us. Lord, those of us who are wrestling with this call, that you would confirm, that you would show us where we're supposed to be. Maybe that is staying where we are. But for a lot of us, Lord, this is a great opportunity for you to lead us to walk by faith and to really trust you beyond our own comfort and our own resources. And Lord, we're going to see much spiritual fruit in our lives because we have followed you to plant a church in South County. So that's our prayer, that's our hope. And really, Lord, that's your promise that when we seek you diligently, you reward us. And Lord, you want to see new churches started all over the place. And we want your kingdom to come in South County. That's why we're going. And so I pray for my friends here, and I pray for myself, and that we would be envisioned by you. Holy Spirit, would you do what only you can do, which is speak to us with such a loud internal voice that we simply can't ignore it. That's what we're looking for. That's what we ask. And we trust you. In Jesus' name, amen.